it's so wonderful to have you here and on the podcast. You've been such a, I don't know, like I feel like a really concrete part of so much of what I've been doing the last few years. And so it's fun to have you come on to the podcast. So welcome, Jennifer. Wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Anna. I feel too like I've got this like kindred connection with you because you've been such a integral part of my life as well as how much I've grown. It directly relates back to you and the records.
Yeah, it's been incredible to be a part of your journey. It's always such an honor to get to see, people grow and expand from the outside, from this perspective. It's just so cool. So I'd love for you to first kind of just share with folks a little bit about yourself. Like what do you do? Where do you live? Anything that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Well, my name is Jennifer and I live in Wisconsin. I have always been a creative. I am currently a senior art director for a music publication company. I am a mom to a 4-year-old boy, and I'm also married to my best friend that I met back in college. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit about me. And um, gosh, I just feel like so much of me has changed in since 2023 when I first met you. So I feel like I'm kind of in the midst of I'm not who I was, but I'm not quite sure who I am yet turning into. But it's definitely been a wild journey. And I'm so thankful that I've had someone to help me through all of the transitions and growth.
Yeah. When was it that we met?
It was 2023 in May specifically. I remember I had an Akashic reading for the very, very first time in January. It was not through you. Never heard of the records before. Didn't really know what I was getting into. That session that I had in January, I was like, this isn't, it didn't wow me. Let's just put it that way. And so then but I knew there was something there. So I kept doing research into the Akashic Records and somehow, I don't know, I think I just landed on your website or Instagram. I don't know how. And then I was like, I just really resonated with you, everything that you were saying. And then I think I started listening to your podcast. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like I need this person in my life. Like, I don't know. It just felt like I was supposed to be hearing the exact messages you were speaking in that time, even though they were like older episodes. And then I got more curious and I went to your website and I was like, I need to book a reading.
I
Yeah.
remember when you reached out on Instagram. I definitely remember like our first conversations. And there are some people when they reach out to me, it's very sort of guarded, I would say, in regards to how they connect with me. And when you connected with me, it was just you were so vulnerable and open. And it was just like, wow, this is a really incredible person. And it's interesting
Oh,
to me that you had already kind of been drawn to the Akasha, like that there was something there, even though your first session didn't necessarily resonate.
yeah.
Like that's so interesting to me that, the Akasha was still like pulling you in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was kind of an interesting experience, but it was one that I couldn't not explore more about. There was something definitely there
Yeah.
calling me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, when it comes to the Akashic Records, there's no one modality that's for everyone, right? And I really feel strongly that when people are drawn to the Akashic Records, like their life is getting ready to shift in a really big way. And it's one of those things where it kind of creeps in a little bit, but then like it grabs a hold on you and like it won't let go,
Yeah.
until you like give it your full attention.
Yes.
So yeah, that's so cool. So in regards to like what kind of was the impetus for you being drawn to the Akashic Records to begin with anyway?
Yeah. So, gosh, obviously, like 2020 was the pandemic, but it was also the year I gave birth to my son. And I I had my son, and legit a week and a half later, the world shut down. So not only was I this brand new mama who had no clue what she was doing, but I also had zero help from family members that I was expecting to be there with us. And I was navigating a really difficult time in my life where I had postpartum anxiety. Um, having a child literally turns your world upside down. Everything that you knew is different, and this tiny human being is relying on you. Not to mention, you have no idea and you're terrified about what's happening in the world and you want to protect your baby. I mean, as a new mom, you get that like mama bear, like, I will to protect my baby at all costs, but then to have like this pandemic happening and not really know all the answers, and it was just terrifying. And then, going from that to kind of just like getting our footing with being new parents to changes in my job, a lot of rearranging, change of hands in my company. And I just felt like everything that I've known is falling apart. Everything that I used to feel confident about, I now feel like shaky, and I don't know what direction to go. And I just need someone to help hold me. I need some direction in my life. And I think I just was like so hungry for someone that I connected with. And I think that it was the intro to your podcast, where you're talking about, I can't even remember how it was worded, but I was like, yes, I need this. And I just felt so, with it, that intro just grabbed me, and I like listened to everything. I was just like filling up on everything you had on there.
That's awesome. It's such a, I mean, the thing is, well, first of all, I can't imagine being a new mom going through the pandemic in the midst
Yeah.
of so much change and uncertainty.
Yeah.
You and I were kind of talking just before we even recorded in regards to how blown away by mothers I am, just in complete awe of your ability to handle so many things and to take care of yourself in the process, and just so much when, like, I'm over here, don't even have a goldfish, which I joke, but like I struggle so hard, like just taking care of me. But to be in that space, I mean, the pandemic was so difficult for so many of us. And then with work changes, and I'm sure body changes, and just, I can't
Yeah.
even imagine.
Yeah. It was a
Um,
whirlwind.
yes, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, as far as my work is concerned, getting the opportunity to work with people like yourself, or who people, people, when they come to the Akasha in this particular way, I feel like this is when the Akasha shows up the most powerfully, because it's like you're really seeking, you're really wanting to understand, you're really needing some guidance. So it's not just like, something fun or cool, or like, ooh, let me like try out this thing. It's really like, I genuinely need assistance. And that is when the Akasha always blows my mind in client sessions, and that's when it's most powerful in my own life as well, because, you know, the Akasha connects us to that wisdom that I do believe is within all of us, that we all have access to. And it's just kind of like that gateway,
Yeah.
to being able to connect with so much truth that I think we already know on many levels, but then
Yeah.
are able to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah. So much so. I felt desperate, and I was really needing to, the first session that we had was, I want to say, one of the most, I'm going to get teary-eyed, one of the most healing experiences. It's like I have never felt so much love in that connection, um, being fully seen, fully heard, and um, just such loving energy that really made me feel like everything is going to be okay, and you are so loved. And I can't even really put it into words, if I'm honest. It was just this feeling where I was like, I could take the biggest breath and the weight was off of my shoulders. And from there, I was like, even at the end of our very first session, I was like, I'm hooked. Sign me up for everything you do. I feel like it was transformative in so many ways. And that was only one session. Like, that wasn't even, then I went on to do courses with you, and of course we've had other readings and some other things, but definitely hooked for sure. And it was the way that it made me feel, and it made me feel peace when I had been just like feeling like untethered and so like ungrounded and so, yeah, it made me feel grounded. So,
Love that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something, I mean, there's not something, the frequency that the Akasha exists in. And of course, the longer that I've worked with it, the more years I've spent in it myself and then with clients. I mean, it literally just is this frequency of love, the frequency that I believe is God energy, and it's able to give us that. It's able to offer us up that, even by just, I think, being in the Akasha. So what was it that, because of course, kind of similar to my own background, like, you're kind of in this corporate world. So what was it that like drew you to want to learn how to read the Akashic records for yourself?
It was after our session. It was actually, so I think, so we had a session and then I went on to do the Akashic Journey of the Body. And then I also did the Reclaim Your Life from Fear course. I'm looking back at my notes because like I keep a journal to see how much I've grown because it's just crazy. So after doing all of that, I was like, there is just something amazing here. And what I loved about you specifically, Anna, and what you do through your podcast and through your working with other people is that you didn't put yourself up on this pedestal like I'm this spiritual guru. You're just like so easy to relate with. You are so easy to say like this is not, for those that are all high and mighty. Like I grew up with a Christian background. Well, it's kind of a long story, but I grew up Catholic and then my parents converted to being like to Christians. And so I have like some background of religion, but like it was always, the priests that could go and connect with God. It was always, Jesus needs to save us because we're not good enough for ours. It's just like I all of a sudden it like cracked open the door like no girl, you're actually really powerful yourself. You can connect to that yourself. And so I didn't feel any apprehensiveness to reach out to you or be like, I don't think this is something I could do. I never went into this thinking that I would A, read for myself or B, be able to read for others. And it's not like I go out and read for others, but I've taken your course and I've done readings for others within the class and, outside of the class a few times I've connected with people that I'm still in touch with. And like I am blown away by the validation that, I will connect with someone's records and I'll be like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense, but this is what came through. And then they'll send me a voice memo back and they're like, oh my gosh, Jennifer, like, how did, and that just like gives you so much motivation to be like, holy crap, like I don't know how, but this is working. And it's like the empowerment that you feel. And I don't even know what question we are on, but now I'm super excited because I'm thinking about all the times that, I've gone into my records because I am always one who has questions about my life and am I making a mistake and what should I do here? And the ability for myself to be like, stop wasting energy on all of that garbage, go directly into my records, ask the damn question, get an answer, and feel like really confident pulls, I don't know if I can say this, so much bullshit out of the way. I just, I don't have time in my life to waste that type of energy anymore. That is so draining. And I used to be like that all the time. And I'm not saying I'm perfect and that I don't like question myself on things, but the ability for me to go into my own records, to like bypass the amount of energy and exertion that I would put on myself and my system overthinking something just literally cuts it into like I don't know, maybe a 20-minute session where I go into my own records. And I'm like, okay, I know what to do now. And I feel confident. And what I feel? I feel peace. And I think that's the all telling sign is like, I'm not in my head about it anymore. I'm not anxious about it anymore. I feel strongly that this is what I need to do. And I do it and I don't overthink it anymore. And I think for sure that has been the biggest change for me in 2024. 2023 was a year of just like, what are these Akashic records? And then having a few sessions and then taking some classes and then practicing and then practicing with others and going into their records. And now 2024 has been utilizing those skills that I've worked and learned with in 2023. And I, on purpose, like keep a journal of what has been happening from month to month, so I can go back and look and be like, look at all that you're doing here. Look at how much you've changed. Something else that I learned about going into the records is that I found that, I used to do the voice notes when I was in my records and try and talk out loud about what I was seeing and channeling, but I couldn't, that didn't work for me. And so I just experimented and found that when I was in the records and I did automatic writing on my computer, like, holy crap, the door like plowed down wide open. I just received so much information that way. And if I had just stopped and I was like, this isn't working, if I had not continued to like just experiment, be like, what the heck, it doesn't matter, like I don't know that I would have gotten there. But just because I played around a little bit, I was able to, like, I don't want to say crack the code, but like what personally worked for me, I'm still blown away that I will get pages worth of stuff that comes through when I ask a question like, this is crazy. And also I couldn't overthink it, right? Because I had a 3-year-old at the time and I don't have a lot of free time. So it's like, I can't be like, okay, I think I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. And then I think I'm going to, like do this chakra clearing. I literally had to okay, I got half an hour. What can we do here? And so I didn't second guess myself. I mean, I found that, what did I want to say here? I found that I would question, this doesn't seem relevant. This seems so silly. Why would this be a part of what they're trying to tell me? And then I just started to just put it down anyways, because it was the people that I read for, that those would be the integral parts where they'd be like, oh my gosh, like what? And I'd be like, that means something to you? I mean, absolutely nothing to me, but that's really cool. So like, I just learned, write everything down. If it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But just not take it so damn seriously, because I think that would be a hindrance to myself. And I just kind of let loose and allowed whatever to happen to happen.
Yeah. So I love that you like touched on, because I know like within the workshops, obviously, because it was just a workshop, we weren't able to really hammer down into all the different ways in which you can really learn how to communicate with your Akashic records, which is definitely something we'll be doing in Access Your Akashic Soul, the course, because we'll have so much more space for that.
Right. Yeah.
So how difficult do you think it was for you to learn how to connect with the Akashic records and begin channeling in your own way? What would you say about that?
I will say I surprised myself. I think that people think that it's like this crazy thing that takes a lot of work, and I'm not saying it doesn't take work. It takes dedication, right? But it's the willingness to open up. It's the willingness to like let go of control. And it's not hard. I don't think about it. Like, okay, in the beginning, sure. Like you're overthinking everything. You're nervous. You're not quite sure what you're getting into. But the second you're in it and you start to have this information flow through you and that love that you feel, how can you not get addicted to this? It's the most amazing thing. And I've not once, like, there will be times where I feel, oh, I feel guilty about this thing or that thing. And they have always been nothing but loving and give me the most beautiful answers where I am just in awe. And I think I am too hard on myself. Like, I'm too hard on myself. I take everything way too seriously. And to have, it's like, I used to rely on myself and how much I could control and feeling like I had all my ducks in a row. And that's just, you can't live life that way. You get tired out and burnt out really fast. But I feel now that I trust myself enough that I can always plug in to source. I can always plug into the records to feel at home, to get a grounded answer, and to help myself feel like everything is okay. And I don't have to question in my head all the time things in my life that don't make sense, things in my life that are really hard, things that make me feel anxious. Instead of getting in my head all the time, I can just plug into my records and feel like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah. So you know that I call the Akashic Records like the greatest tool for self-empowerment.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that in regards to your own experience and what you have benefited from the Akasha.
Yeah. I don't think I really understood that until, because I would hear it on your podcast all the time, right? But until you get in the records, until you start to work with that energy, and you can see how you're changing as a person, that's when you start to realize, oh, like this makes so much sense. And I wholeheartedly agree that the Akasha, like going into the records and pouring into yourself, like it's like one of the greatest, you're right, it's one of the greatest tools, at least it has been in my life. And like I was saying before, I think it's just freed up so much worrying in my life. It's empowered me. So I used to look outside of myself all the time for answers, all the time. Who's going to help me? What therapist is going to help me? What supplement am I going to take that's going to help my body? And you'd research online for hours and hours, like what's the answer? How do I fix this? Now, instead of checking out 80 different websites and researching, for hours on end, I just go to myself. And I think that's something that grows with time in the records. I obviously didn't feel that right away. And I've only been doing, so I can't remember when I first took your, learning to read the records in 2023, but it was early 2024 when I did the learn to read for others. And then I think that's what really kind of opened the door for me, because hearing other people confirm, because sometimes like in my head, I'm thinking, is this really legit when it's, you're doing your own records? But when you go into someone else's records and they're like, whoa, and you're like, okay, there's something here. And then you get a little bit more confidence. And then when I started doing the automatic typing on my computer in my records, instead of like talking things through like a voice memo, it just like, it was so much information coming through that I literally couldn't stop typing. And this whole past year of 2024 has been me practicing just in my own records. And I like every time I go on the records, I type up my questions beforehand. Then I go on my records, I type out the answers, I save them all on my computer in a folder it's called Akashic Records 2024. And I literally have the date and like the questions that I asked as the title. Because I thought, okay, if this is legit, let me just try this. Let me write everything down so that if I'm questioning something, I can see, does this come true? Is this for real? Like I can go back and see. And damn if it isn't, like it's crazy. I mean, I've even been able to I was just curious about my future nieces and nephews, because we have some babies coming up in the family, or we had babies coming up in the family, and when they were born, like they told me they were going to be a boy, or they told me that it was going to be a girl, and that's what happened. Like the more of those things start to happen, or like what kind of a relationship I will have with my niece or nephew. Another really crazy thing that happened was I was having some really bad hip pain because I sit all day long, and I bought this really expensive chair online, to try and help with, being sitting correctly. And I got the chair, and as soon as I sat in it, I thought, this doesn't feel right. But I felt really bad because I spent a lot of money on it. And I was like, this is supposed to work. And I was in my head, and I thought, Jennifer, just go into the records. So I went into the records, and they're like, immediately, they just like, you're wasting too much time on this. Your body is clearly telling you an answer. Like, this is not, your body told you, trust your body. There's nothing wrong. You didn't make a mistake. This happens all the time. The return process is not going to be a hassle. It'll be super easy. And I just was like, okay, because I didn't want to waste any more energy on something that I felt like I made a mistake on, or, like felt bad because of the money I spent or having to go through the return process. Like, these are just normal things that Jennifer gets hung up on all the time for whatever reason. And I thought, okay, my body, as soon as I sat in it, said no. And so I'm going to start the return process. And it was fine. And like, how much time did I save myself from going around in circles in my head about a stupid chair? Like, these are the practical ways that the Akasha can help us, especially for someone like me that is very much on the anxious side of things. Like, I have been an anxious person my whole life. I need to be on anti-anxiety medication. I have a better quality of life that way. I will say that the Akasha is like having like a whole separate dose of Lexapro when I need it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that when we think about the Akashic records, because they sound so sort of esoteric, they are quite esoteric.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and then when you learn what they are, like, you think of them on this plane that's so much higher. So you don't realize all of the practical ways in which you can utilize them. And I think you just provided a perfect example. Perfect example. So thank you so much for sharing with us, Jennifer, and just for being here today. As we kind of close, is there anything else that you want to share about, learning the Akashic records with me, or anything about the Akasha in general?
Well, I can just say like we had been discussing before, the amount of empowerment that I feel within myself by utilizing the records versus my life beforehand without acknowledgement of the records, or the ability to know that I can trust myself and go within. Like, it's like, who even was that other person? So I would say, if you feel drawn to the records, there's probably a reason, and to check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy for me to think about who I was before the records as well. I'm so much nicer now. That's my number one joke, but it's really true. Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much, Jennifer, for sharing your time with us and just your experience. I know that it's going to be really helpful to folks, and it's so cool to just to hear it myself, and just to be part of your journey, and also so many similarities in regards to what the Akasha has done for us. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing your time with us. Make sure to share this with someone who might benefit. Definitely check out Access Your Akashic Soul, launching on November 1st. Be sure to join the waiting list, as you'll get first dibs that way. In addition, you can also take Access the Akashic Records, which is a self-study course at any point in time. Thanks again for being here. And don't forget, when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. Until next time.